What up? This is Yinka Diz,
Peace, this is Outlaw.
and you listen to the 80s Babies podcast.
And on today's episode, we have a Make It a Classic for the debut album, Ghetto Fabolous by Fabolous. This was released September 11th, 2001. This was my first year in college.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was your first year.
My first year in college, very, very memorable year. So the last
Right.
album we did around this time was also released the same day, and that was Jay-Z's Blueprint. I had a lot to say about that just from a Where Were You perspective.
Right.
I don't have as much to say about this one.
Okay.
But nevertheless, I'm curious, why did you pick this Fabolous project of all the ones in his catalog?
Well, I mean, this was the beginning of Fabolous.
It is, yeah.
And to be honest with you, this is when I had the most hope for Fabolous.
Interesting. Okay.
We've talked about on and off mic about how maybe it might seem like I beat up on Fabolous. And I think both for Fabolous and Cassidy, right? These are two MCs that are of the ilk of disaster, right? Like, this is an era where I'm a rapper that's like them. I'm a battle rapper who's also trying to make records. This is the 106 in Park era where people are doing Freestyle Friday. Yeah. This is the basement, where people want to come and do their freestyles next to Tigga. Like, this is when DJ Clue is still relevant.
Yeah.
So this is
DJ
an era.
Clue.
This is
William
an era.
M. Holla. Wait, William H.
William H. Holla with William M. Holla. William M. Holla was Mariah Carey
Okay,
of
William.
the Holla family.
So we should. So William is William H. Bonney, right? Or
William H. Bonney is Fabolous.
And then William M. Holla is Mariah.
Is Mariah.
And then
William H. Holla
Holla
is
Clue.
Clue.
Were there any other ones?
Jay-Z was one of them, right? They made up like this whole fake Holla family. I don't know what the purpose of the shit was, but yeah. So anyway, this is time frame.
Storm.
These are artists that I have a lot of hope for. Fabolous probably being one of the main ones.
Yeah.
So I was on board the Fabolous ride from the very beginning.
Okay.
And this album, I think I had a lot of hope for because of that.
Okay.
And I felt like it was a bit underwhelming, but at the same time, like I feel like I understand why, and it's very. There's other projects from Fabolous, particularly mixtapes, that have like a lot more hope, like a lot more there. But at the same time, like I don't think there's a more perfect storm in Fabolous's catalog in terms of timing and like situation than there was in his first album.
That's true, and we'll get into a little of that when we get into the Where We Use, because there was, I think, a lot of build up for Fabolous. Bleeding over from, I guess, the previous summer or year, if you will. Okay, well, before we get into this album in particular, do you think that the rest of his albums after this were kind of underwhelming, or do you think that he has like a classic in his catalog?
I think that most of his albums were underwhelming. I think if you ask Fabolous himself, and I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I think he did do a Breakfast Club interview where he was a little more honest about like his output as a recording artist. And he basically said he was a mixtape artist. And I agree with that. I think, I think some of his mixtapes are known as like classic mixtapes. But from an album perspective, I would say, is it called Street Talk or Real Talk? There was an album that came out maybe in like the 04, 05 timeframe that came out when we were at UVA. I think that's probably his best
Is that the one with
recording album. Yes.
Yeah, I was listening to that shit today.
That shit is fire.
It's still fire.
So yeah, I think that's his best recording album.
Okay.
But I think that maybe again, this is still the best perfect storm of situation in his career.
Okay. So we're about to get into this, and real quick, a shout out to Brian, Mr. Kaysen, who is listening right now. He's actually watching our live right now. But also he sent me some notes about this album. So throughout this episode, I'll be referring to the things that he sent me so that, so you can get the thoughts of a fan of this artist, because I know that I think this is his favorite artist, if I'm not mistaken. It's not his favorite album, but I think this is his favorite artist.
Yeah, so, and I feel like, Kaysen typically comments when we do post things about Fab. Yeah. And, I think sometimes he feels like we don't give him a fair shake. So apologies, and we're definitely going to do our best to make sure that we do give him a fair shake.
Yeah, and he's actually the one that suggested we do something from Fabolous. So it's like, all right, well, we going to do this one.
Right.
All right. So let's get into the Where Were You? So why don't you start us off, Yinka?
Sure. Where was I? So this was the year that around the time I was graduating maybe from school in Brussels. So, man, where am I? I'm in transit. I'm rapping. I'm trying to record music, etc. I think when I think of Fabolous, I think of freestyles.
Okay.
And the first time I ever heard of Fabolous was actually I think on DJ Clue's album.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He had a song called the Way We Like It, and I think it's the last song on this project.
Was that when he was still going by Fabolous Sporting?
Right.
Fabolous Sport. Right.
And so, I mean, the reason he went by Fabolous Sport is his name was Sport. He didn't have the name Fabolous, right? He didn't have a name. He got an opportunity to come up to the radio and rap. And Nori gives himself credit for discovering Fabolous, which is hilarious because it's so revisionist. But Nori was on the radio with Fabolous doing a freestyle.
Yeah.
And Fabolous comes and he gets this opportunity to rap, and they're like, "Well, what's your name?" He just kind of goes by Sport. Everybody in the hood knows him as Sport. So he's doing this freestyle, and he spells Fabolous, but he spells it wrong.
Yes.
And then they're like,
it's
okay.
Unintentionally.
And so
wrong.
then they're like, okay, well, that's your name. Everybody's like, oh, Fabolous. So that just becomes his name. So they tack on Fabolous and Sport. But anyway, so.
Can I just say real quick that I actually think that it's, at the time I used to laugh at it, but I think in retrospect, FABO sounds so much better than FABU. And I think that it's an unintentional mishap that in the long run probably played out for the best.
For sure. It's so ill when he says it on tracks and stuff. Yeah, for sure. So I hear him on Clue, and I remember that the talk around him at the time was people were like, "Oh, that's the guy that sounds like Mace." And he actually even says something on the song about like
that is right.
He's like, I'm not something that's like a slight to Mace, like on the low. Like, I'm not gonna be a pastor or some shit like that. Anyway, so we hear him. People are talking about how he sounds like Mace. I don't think he sounds like Mace, but at the same time, I'm not loving him. And people are telling me, nah, you gotta hear this kid. He did this freestyle with Nori last year.
Okay.
You gotta go back and hear it. So I hear it. Fabolous murders his freestyle.
You got bars for sure.
So then at this point I become a Fabolous fan, and I'm tracking his freestyles. I don't care so much about his recorded records that he's doing. They're not great to me, but his freestyles are killing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the thing that kind of led up to this album was he did 2 big freestyles, but the main one that I remember is Rap City's The Basement.
Okay.
At the time, 106 in Park is the biggest thing in life, right? Like, and there's a rapper called Poster Boy who had won 7 weeks in a row. And so if you remember,
I vaguely remember this.
Right. And so at the time there were only like maybe 2 or 3 rappers that had won 7 weeks in a row.
This was the Freestyle Fridays, right?
Freestyle Fridays.
Yeah.
So Jin had won 7 weeks in a row. And
is that the Asian guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so when you win 7 weeks in a row, you go in the Hall of Fame. You stop.
Yeah.
So Jin wins 7 weeks in a row, and then he kind of goes into battle rap, doesn't really do so great. And then Poster Boy was the next person to win 7 weeks in a row. Everybody was talking about. So he does a freestyle at the basement with Tigga, Fabolous, and Poster Boy, and he murders the shit. I'll never forget because I'm in transit like from Brussels, and we're talking about like everybody's talking. Did you hear this kid? He's got this jersey on, and he just walks up and he's like, "It must be the way I got these broads swarming. It's now even these old dudes is giving me grills like George Foreman." Like that's how he starts his bars, and it's just like everybody's just like, "Oh my god!" Oh! He had so many bars. It's like punchline centric shit.
Yeah.
This was the kid.
Yeah.
And after he did that freestyle, everybody was on notice. Like this kid is going to be the next big thing. So the other thing I remember is, like I said, every summer I was going back to Cali. So I remember being in Cali when Can't Deny It comes out as a single. And just this kid from Brooklyn that nobody knows, he's got a Rick Rock beat, which we know who Rick Rock is back in Cali. He's got a Nate Dogg hook. It's like, how did this, like, Nate Dogg was the guy at the time. If you could get Nate Dogg on your hook, you're out of here already.
He's a cheat code.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, this guy has the perfect situation. And not only does he have the perfect situation, he's me, right? And so that's the reason why, like, I was, like when I see a Cassidy or when I see a Fabolous, I'm like, these are punchline-oriented freestyle battle rap guys that are making records and have a label situation behind them. And that's why I'm so tuned in, you know what I mean, to this. So those were the kind of the 2 things, was the freestyles and then Can't Deny It.
So let me just say, to piggyback off your point, one of the things that Brian sent me, he said, I asked him, like, what about him as an artist captured your attention? so to make him become your favorite. And he said the slick metaphors and the hard punches on the cuts. But also, when you talk about, you said he was you. From an image standpoint, Brian thinks that, Fabolous was him. He said slim, 6-foot-ish brother that had a chip tooth like him. And then, of course, his flow. So it's just funny that you connected with the I guess with the lyrics, the bars and things, but the image was something that one of our other listeners connected to as well.
That makes sense, and I never really thought about it that way, but I mean I think that's real. Like I think
especially at the time in our life, that's a very impressionable time for us.
And at the time, like Jay-Z was out, but Jay-Z was 30 something. You know what I mean, right? Like this is somebody who's young like us. He dresses like us. He moves like us. Like. So you're rooting for him because he's you. You see yourself in him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not for that. Yeah. So for me,
where were you?
I was never into like DJ Clue annoyed me.
Okay,
right?
Fair.
And I didn't really care about that. Like, That's a Storm? Was that in Def Jam, or was that like an affiliate? Was that under Murder Inc.? Like, what was it?
It was an imprint. I want to say under Elektra.
Under Elektra?
Yeah, but it was Clue's imprint.
But he was cool with Rough Riders, right?
Yeah. He was cool with everybody though, because he did mixtapes.
Okay, so I was just never really into Clue. I remember when Clue comes out, the advertisements for it was big. Like I remember you had all your favorite rappers were just like, "Yo, Clue is by the time you get an album, this, that, and the other." And I just remember, I'm not sure if I ever heard the album, but I just remember just being like underwhelmed by
this
him.
album.
No, the Clues album.
Okay, Clues.
Right, Clues album, and just being like kind of underwhelmed, just whatever, and then just finding him annoying. And in general, that wasn't the kind of music that I was really listening to at the time. Okay. Obviously, listening to Jay-Z because Jay-Z is the man, right?
So here's a question,
Go ahead.
Not to cut you off. You have spoken favorably about Funkmaster Flex, who kind of was doing similar things in this time frame, especially for people like us that are from outside the tri-state area. Did you find Flex less annoying, or was it like what was it about Clue specifically?
The difference between Flex and Clue was that while Flex was equally annoying on the mic, he in fairness to Flex, when he's on the radio, especially in his latter stages, he's increasingly more annoying, right? Like, so I'm not sure if you're familiar with New York radio at all, but like, I've heard stories about how like he would just like repeat like the first 15 seconds of a track over and over again,
and that would make it hot.
When we were in high school, I don't think he did that. Like, so for Funkmaster Flex Volume 3, that's my Funkmaster Flex mixtape.
Right.
I'm not sure if he was doing that yet, right? But at the same time, too, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, I don't know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, Funkmaster Flex Volume 3, you had DMX on there. You also had KRS-One. You also had Missy and Erykah Badu, Mariah Carey.
Right.
Like, what? Like, you had the Alcoholics. You had Wu-Tang on there.
You're saying he was trying to bridge more gaps. It wasn't just the same.
Yeah. And whereas like Clue, like I didn't really care for DMX. Like, it was interesting. Like, I respected DMX and I understood the flavor. And if DMX was on a freestyle, I wanted to listen to it. But the music that he was making, like the little snippets of the album that I heard when my brother was playing it, they didn't connect with me. Ja Rule, like I didn't really care about that. Like Jay-Z, I wasn't even a huge fan of that.
Okay.
So for me, Clue was just that kind of segment of New York rap that I didn't care about.
Got it.
And I say that to say that I completely missed the appearance of Fabolous Sport on that project and any other mixtape that he did.
Yeah.
Right? And so my first experience with Fabolous was with Superwoman.
Okay.
With Lil Mo, right? And the crazy thing about
Part 2.
Was it Part 2?
Yeah.
Well, there's a Part 1?
There's a Part 1 that doesn't feature Fabolous that kind of tanked, and then they did a second one with Fabolous.
So
that's the one we know.
The thing about that song that was so great is I feel like it launched both of their careers in the mainstream.
Yeah.
Right? Like that was like her first big single, and that was his first big featured appearance.
Yeah.
This was also around the time when like shaking was becoming a thing. Now, I'm not sure if people shook to that. I feel like we did shake to that song. The other one that we did, that there was a Eve record that people used to shake to as well.
Okay.
But I remember that, that's basically where I was when Fabolous came out.
Yeah.
It was cool. I liked the song. I liked his appearance on it. But in general, like he wasn't necessarily an artist that I felt like I had to run out and just like grab the next project.
Okay.
So then after that, my next experience with Fabolous would have been the release of this album.
Okay.
Right? And so the thing that I remember most was that I guess this album came out September 11th, but I mean, obviously I listened to it beforehand because you know who my roommate was.
Yeah.
We had this and we had Blueprint. And so the two albums that he was listening to the most were obviously Jay-Z's Blueprint and was Fabous's Ghetto Fabolous.
Yep.
Now, from what I remember about first year, you know, Blueprint definitely overshadowed Ghetto Fabolous, right? Like Blueprint was a serious, oh my God, amazing project. And Fabolous was just like, oh, fun. You know what I mean? Now, that being said, though, there was still kind of respect for the project because we were dancing to all the music at the parties, right? And plus, Fabolous also had bars, and every third person on campus looked like Fabolous. Right? So, you know, from that perspective, I mean, it was definitely something we were talking about it. Like, we have respect for him, but like, not everybody took that album as serious.
Right.
I certainly did not. In fact, when we go through this project, when we go through the tracks, like there's songs that I do remember and songs that I don't remember. So I never actually sat down to listen to this project until recently. But half of this album I remember because Joe used to listen to it all the time. The other half I have no recollection of because he just skipped those songs.
And it's interesting that you say that, and maybe, you know, you can try to provide some context there, right? Because for me as a kid, I'm, you know, like you said, this came out September 11th, but it came out at the same time as the Blueprint. Jay-Z by this time is such a big star that you know, I mean, I'm in Belgium, but we all know who Jay-Z is, right? Whereas Fabolous, I'm the only person listening to this, at least of my schoolmates and stuff like that. You, however, your roommate was from Brooklyn, right? And a West Indian person from Brooklyn, right? So Caribbean and from Brooklyn, which is more on the nose when it comes to Fabolous as an identity.
Yeah, he's Dominican and Black, I think. Right. Dominican and American,
Right. So did Joe as a Caribbean person from Brooklyn like identify with him in a different way?
He never spoke about the Caribbean aspect of it. I think it was just the fact that they were both from Brooklyn.
Right.
You know what I mean? And look, like Joe that first year, did he have throwbacks? He had the long white tees. He definitely had the fitteds, and he definitely had the Air Forces. Right. Now, what I will say is, in one of his other notes, Brian was talking about the style, right? And that, you know, like the fitteds and the throwbacks,
absolutely,
and the fitted, the leans on the hats and everything like that. Like he said, like he took that from this album, and that kind of became his style. The thing is, though, Fabolous is not responsible for that.
I agree. I agree, and I think, you know, while Fabolous made the Jersey thing his identity, I think maybe part of it was that he lacked identity, like as a recording artist. And so, you know, everybody was wearing throwback jerseys and everybody was wearing fitteds and everybody was wearing do-rags. That just kind of became his thing because there wasn't another thing. It felt like.
So I wanted to make sure that I had this right because I was like, well, you weren't in New York at the time. I wasn't in New York at the time. And this is obviously a very New York style. So I reached out to Imhotep. And Imhotep was like, no, Fabolous is absolutely not responsible for the style. What he said was, he said around his sophomore or junior year, so that would have been, I guess, 98, 99. That's when the fitteds kind of came in. That's when the throwbacks kind of came in. He said the one person who probably doesn't get credit for this, but who should, is Shine. Shine on the Barrington Levy, on the Barrington Levy record.
Right.
He's wearing like a throwback Julius Erving, and he has like a fitted on. I'm not sure if he had a fitted on, but he had the throwback Julius Erving. Jay-Z has the fitted on with Do It Again. Yeah, he's got the fitted on and everything like that, right? So Imhotep was making it seem like it was kind of just like more organic, like that just kind of became the style. Nevertheless, though, you know, I didn't want to necessarily attribute it to Fabolous. But what I will say, though, it's possible, though, that if you weren't from New York, right, and you were getting your style from hip hop, from the TV, perhaps it's possible that Fabolous was our first image of it. Maybe.
So, all right, I think I can actually speak on this, right? Because at this time, I'm technically headquartered in Brussels, right? And so, but I'm shuttling back and forth between Chicago, California, and Brussels, and Virginia a little bit, because this is around the time I was gonna start going to UVA, right? So you know, and one was really a thing that permeated culture.
Hot sauce.
Yeah, and so like the And One mixtape, I remember being in high school in Virginia, and people going crazy to get these And One tapes. People would buy shoes for them. People would dub them for each other. Like, it was a cultural phenomenon.
Professor.
And when I moved to another country, I didn't realize how much that culture carried. But what we considered hip hop culture between BET, what BET was doing with Rap City, The Basement, because people were taping that and passing that around as well.
Okay.
So I think like those things were moving New York and hip hop culture around the world.
Yeah.
In a way that by the time, you know, a Fabolous came out, that culture was already global.
Okay.
It wasn't like, oh, Fabolous is doing that, now we're gonna do that.
Yeah. I mean, and look, this is 21 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So trying to get some of the facts right here. We might get some things, some of the little details wrong, but like it's a good exercise to try to remember like how the chronology of just like what kind of came first. So nevertheless, so that's where I was when this album came out. And like I said, it's never an album that I sat to listen to. I just kind of like heard it in the background. Songs that Joe liked. He's like, yo, listen to this song. And I'm like, all right, like he's nice. Great, he got his dick sucked again. He said it. He said it. Used a different way to say it again.
I know.
Cool.
It
right?
gets so boring after a certain point in time. Which is something else that I actually do want to say about that though. To shoot my man some bill, because I was listening to this joint again.
Yeah.
And it made me think back to like, because Fabolous isn't that much older than we are, right?
Yeah.
And like, so the amount of life experience that somebody has when they're, you know, 18, 19, 20, trying to work on an album, like
he was 24.
Was he?
Yeah.
I thought he was like 20 or something.
No, he was 24. He was born in 1977. He was 24 when this album came out.
Okay, well, anyway.
Yeah. You know what Biggie was doing when he was 24?
Well,
Life After.
That is a little different. But Biggie's also the greatest rapper of all time. So, but I was trying to shoot him some bell just on some like, he's a youngish guy. Like maybe he just doesn't have that much life experience at this point in time. Now we're 10 albums in. Hopefully you got a little bit more to draw from. But back then he probably didn't.
Yeah, I kind of want to give him some slack on that as well. We can get into some of the critical reception. I remember that like this was like a fun album.
Okay.
But like generally it was just kind of like middling. Like there was definitely some standout songs from it, and it was weird because the project was big enough that like it gave him a level of success without actually having the album needing to be great. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree.
I don't really recall. I didn't really get into what the critical reception was from the wiki.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I don't remember Fabolous ever being a person whose albums like we highly anticipated. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess you might be right.
And I think one of the reasons why is because like for what it mattered, like okay, he might have had like his songs where he had good bars on it, and the rest of the time he lived in a club, and I lived in a club, and like that was like all he needed to do.
So I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit.
Go ahead.
I will agree post this album, but pre this album, we actually did anticipate this album.
Interesting,
because we didn't know what he was gonna be.
That's
right.
fair.
Like you said, Superwoman comes out the summer before this album comes out. If I'm not mistaken, or maybe it was either this summer or the summer after. But anyway, when leading up to him, he's this dope freestyle artist. We know he's got a Neptune's beat. We know he's got a Timbaland beat. He's backed by Clue. What is that gonna sound like?
Gotcha.
So like I was heavily anticipating this.
Okay.
It wasn't until after hearing this that I was like, okay, this guy lacks depth. I don't care about his albums. His singles are what matter.
Yeah.
But just to go to,
and that's what I meant by, you know, he would have songs or records on mixtapes or cuts on mixtape that might be dope. You know, he's got a freestyle or bars. Right. The rest of the time he's living in the club. That's what I mean, because he has singles that like we heard constantly throughout our college years.
Right. And so to go to the critical reception, because I got it pulled up here, right? It seems like it's mostly, you know, average scores. And by average, I mean C average.
Yeah.
So All Music's got this as a 3 out of 5 stars. Entertainment Weekly's got it as a C. Hip Hop DX has it as a 3 out of 5. Pitchfork is actually the highest rating. They've got 7.2 out of 10. Rap Reviews, 6 out of 10. Rolling Stone, 3.5. So, I mean, people pretty much just thought that this was an average album.
Let's get into the highlights a little bit. I think for me, clever punchlines, the wordplay, the funny bars. There was a lot of good party hits.
Yeah.
And it's just like a first year time capsule for me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll co-sign you. I put punchlines.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, this is peak punchline rap.
Yeah.
And he's good at it.
Yeah.
And the multi-syllabic, you know, rhymes, like he's nice at it. He leans on it too much, right?
Way too much. Like he forces it. So I put this in my notes, right? Like the way that Talib Kweli forces syllables, he forces rhymes he'll sacrifice flow.
I agree.
To put a rhyme together, and a rhyme that's not even all that clever.
Yeah.
And he did it constantly throughout this project. He's got the same flow on 90% of this project.
Yeah.
It's monotonous. His voice isn't all that compelling.
And it's funny because he gets the Mace comparison, and I want to say that Mace did birth that style, that right? But then like
Mace has something else though.
But Mace was better at like, he didn't sacrifice song structure or like it didn't bother your ear the way like Fabolous like forced that same, you know, cadence throughout the album.
I think the other reason why the Mace comparison is a little is apt, kind of, is because from an image standpoint, I think that Fabolous, this is gonna sound very weird, but Fabolous was like, the image that he was projecting was like cute and pretty.
Okay.
Like not hard and thuggish. Despite what he's saying, the image was like, everything is clean. He's got the jewel. Everything is fresh. He's got this baby boy face. And it's just like, he's kind of trying to be sexy. And it's like a pretty boy image, which Mace was definitely doing. Like, he didn't start out that way, but when he got on Bad Boy, he definitely leaned into that.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that some of the comparisons, like obviously we're talking about vocal styles, but it's very easy to throw two guys together from an image perspective. And I think that's probably what they were doing, especially around that time. We all wanted to, like, we all became attached to these certain figures in the mid 90s that had disappeared and gone away. So Tupac goes away, we're either going to replace him with Ja Rule or DMX. It's like, oh, who's DMX? DMX isn't himself. He's got to be the next Tupac, right? And so Mace goes away. Well, we need another Mace. Well, okay, maybe it's Fabolous. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
So I don't know. I just think that's one of the other reasons for that comparison.
Word. So other highlights, features. I said they all seem like they want to be here and they're taking it seriously, particularly Nate Dogg.
Yeah.
Nate Dogg's,
he understands the assignment for sure.
Right. And Nate Dogg's feature almost serves as a cosign, right? Like it's like, oh, Nate Dogg's featured here, I'm gonna take this person seriously.
That's true.
And then I said a few of the producers. Rick Rock. Okay. I said Rick Rock doesn't get enough credit for being a part of the origin story of you know, Fabolous as we know him. And then Virginia's finest, man, Neptunes and Timbaland, like
Timbo the King and Neptunes.
757 showed up, man.
Yeah,
they showed up and they showed out. And those two records, you know, I very, very fondly remember those records in our college days, as man, we played them records out. Yeah.
For good reason.
They, you know, were one record, and we'll get to it when we talk about these, but became, you know, one of, if not like the premier Harlem Shake song in a time frame when Harlem shaking at parties was a thing. And we will get into that when we talk about this record. And then, you know, last but not least, this one's funny. I got Dr. Dre. And the reason I got Dr. Dre is I said, for getting a beat on here and not even being involved with the project, because one day, the one, I knew one day I'll be. That's literally somebody doing their best Dr. Dre impression. Dun, dun,
interesting. Okay.
Dun,
yeah.
Dun. Like that's literally like all of the
maybe
Dre
Dr. Dre or Scott Storch.
Well, I guess. But Dr. Dre. This is a Dr. Dre impression. So I thought that was funny that it seemed like somebody tried to do their Dr. Dre impression on the album. So those are my highlights.
Okay. Lowlights?
Yeah. Do you want to go?
Look, easiest ones here, DJ Clue and Duro. They're trash on here.
High five.
They are.
I don't think they're trash, but I do
look.
Think
they have one record that's actually okay. It's decent. They have one that's good.
Yeah.
And the rest are, oh my God. Like the way you talk about like some bars are like groaners, like some of these beats are groaners. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Those are my biggest low light. Also, if we're going to talk about like featured guests and producers, I mean, Just Blaze, this like his, I do not like this Just Blaze beat. This might be easy.
I actually don't think it's that bad, but I agree with you that like the instrumentation is annoying. That like like the specific synth that he chose is annoying.
We'll talk about more of that song later. But the other thing too. Okay, so the lack of depth and the lack of imagination from Fabolous.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, and
Absolutely.
I think that spoiler alert, this is a make it a classic. And typically when we do this, when we go through our analysis of the tracks afterwards, we give our assessment of how we can do and make it a classic. To be honest, I didn't even attempt to do one. Because I don't think you can make this a classic given you'd have to completely retool Fabolous and reconceptualize Fabolous. Now that being said, when we talk about these albums, and we did an episode about like what makes an album a classic, right? And there's a lot of different things, musicality, constant themes, subject matter, this, that, and the other. There's a lot of that. But that being said, though, not every single album has to have those things for it to be great. They can all fit into their little niches, right? Yeah. So, for example, like a good example of that might have been what's Ludacris' debut album? Or not the debut, but the one that
with Southern Hospitality, the big one.
The one that has Use a Hoe. Back for the first time. Back for the first time, right? Like, I'm not gonna say that's a classic record, but that album was very well received. And that is an album that, like, for a lot of it, you can't really take serious, but it's fun. Like, there was a niche for it and it worked. Yeah. Right. And I feel like I think the best chance for this one to be a classic would be to kind of like fill that lane a little bit, to do something. Right.
So let me get my lowlights in before we talk about the make it a classic.
My point was, I was just teasing the fact that, like, there's just nothing here, really, barely. Okay. And the lack of an imagination, and like the fact that, like, you literally come up with like 100 different ways to get head. Like, it's cool, but it gets tiresome.
It gets very tiresome.
So tiresome that the fact that, like, you have an entire song on here dedicated to that might have worked if it wasn't already existing on the rest of the album.
I don't disagree with that at all. So my lowlights are very similar. I said Clue and Duro as executive producers. I said this project lacks both depth and direction. And then I said Clue and Duro as actual producers. I said I didn't notice this until this time around, but the beats sound very dated, and it's kind of glaring when you juxtapose it with how the 757 producers showed up. You know, like Tim and the Neptunes, their beats just, they sound so much better when you pair them next to these Clue and Duro beats.
Right.
And then last, I said same as you, Fabolous as a main character. I said, outside of the fact that he likes to get dome and smoke weed, we don't learn anything about his story except for on one song, and that's One Day.
Yeah, true. So those are my overarching lowlights. Did I have anything else? I don't think I had anything else.
Yeah.
No. So we did the critical reception. Do you want to do each of these track for track, or do you just want to say your highlights and lowlights and move on?
I mean, we can just say each track and say if you think it's a highlight or a low light. If not, we just keep it moving. I don't have a lot to say about a lot of these records.
That's fine. Click and Spark?
Meh.
So this is a low light for me. This is one of the ones that I don't remember. Joe skipped it. Joe never played. I don't remember Joe ever playing this.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I didn't like the beat on it. That's pretty much the reason why. So most of the lowlights that I have, most of them are beat related. Yeah. And just like song related. Yeah. Because on a lot of these, even though I don't really like the beats, I actually think that like Fabolous does shine.
Yeah, Fab comes off on Click and Spark. I mean, it doesn't do anything for you, but it's 2 minutes of just him rhyming.
This is one of Brian's highlights. He liked this one. Okay. Yeah.
It's one of the better songs on here, but that doesn't bode well for the album.
That's true. It didn't work for me. I didn't like it. Okay. Keeping It Gangsta.
Again, one of the better songs on here, but
so this is one of Brian's highlights, but it's a low light for me. I do not think this song has aged well. This is one of the ones that Joe used to play, so I definitely remember Keeping It Gangsta. And this is one of the ones that was getting like, when you're in the stacks, whatever, and like people like doing work and people like playing music, or
this
in the dorm,
the library for folks that didn't go to UVA.
Like the song, like this would have been one of the songs that was on in the background. Keeping It Gangsta, like everybody was saying it, but like I do not think this has aged well. The beat sounds like a 12-year-old made it, and his vocal range on here, like his singing on the hook. Look, it might have actually worked today, because Drake just put out an entire album sounding like this, but listening back to it, I don't think it has aged well, and it grinds my ears. I just think the song is just not good to me.
I don't think it's nearly as bad as you do, but I also don't think that it's good enough where I'm like we need this in the world. Like if Keeping It Gangsta never happened and it just never happened, nothing would change.
Yeah, I feel it.
Yeah.
All right, the next one, Youngin. Holla back, Youngin.
Hey, highlight for sure.
Still a highlight, yo. This shit has aged so well.
Still a
highlight. This is one of the better Neptunes beats from back in the day too. Because there's a lot of we talked before about this with Neptunes, like where their legacy is and this, that, and the other. And like on a lot of those records that like really catchy back in the day, they haven't all aged that well. They sound very one-dimensional, very shallow, no depth. This one still goes. This
It
one
does.
still goes.
It does. It does. I got a couple stories on this one.
Please,
So the
please.
first, and I don't know if I've ever told this story on the podcast.
Go ahead.
But my introduction to Outlaw as a human,
Oh.
I come to UVA, and at the time, like I said, like Harlem Shaking at parties was a thing.
Yeah.
And so I remember being around, I think I was around but I was around some people. And I just remember hearing your name, like your name came up, and they're like, yeah, this cat Outlaw. And I'm like, who's Outlaw? And they're like, this light-skinned cat that be shaking at parties.
Yeah.
And so like I didn't know you, but that was my first introduction to you. It was like, Outlaw, the light-skinned cat that be shaking at parties. I think you had braids at the time.
No,
like
I was trying to. I had actually cut my hair.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I had braids.
I just remember that. Remember hearing that. So and Youngin was the soundtrack of that. It was like when the song was playing, this conversation happened where it was like, oh yeah, Outlaw, blah 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 blah. But yeah, man, this record. So many amazing memories with this record. The only other thing I will say that is a story is I think it was Nori on Drink Champs.
Okay.
And he was talking about how Pharrell produces people and how Pharrell's like a genius at producing people. And essentially when he gives people, like, he'll give you a hit record and he'll tell you how to rap to it. So apparently he gave this beat to Fabolous and was like,
Rolling.
yo, yeah. And he was saying like, Fabolous came back and was like, I can't come up with anything. Like, I don't know what to say. And he was like, go back and listen to Ice Ice Baby, Vanilla Ice's second verse. And literally, if you listen to here, I can pull up the lyrics. Like, it's literally, you can rap the same lyrics to the cadence of this joint.
You know what's so funny? When I was, so in one of my lowlights, or one of my notes, and I already said it, that I was talking about how like his flow is very monotonous. It's throughout. This is one of the songs where it's not that, like his flow goes in a different direction. And I think that it's interesting because I never really had that assessment of Fabolous until listening to this record, because I never heard the record before. I was only listening to the singles, and this is one of them. And so like this single, he sounds totally different on here than he does on the rest of the project.
Yeah, so, and it's literally because Pharrell was like, take this flow, and like he literally took the exact flow that he told them to, and it became a hit. So I thought that was an amazing story. In terms of
shaking, yes, this is one of the records that we used to dance to. The crew were the main four were they were all from New York. So Hustle was he from the Bronx? I think Hustle was from the Bronx. Divine was from the Bronx. Imhotep was from Brooklyn, right? Now there were other people who tried to shake. Leon tried to shake a little bit. Ermias tried to shake a little. Like Ermias swore he could, and he actually wasn't bad, but like he wasn't on our level. The only reason why I got there,
our level.
But it's true though. It's true. Like
bro, everybody was trying to shake. I'm actually embarrassed to say that I was trying to shake. Like
that's fair.
We had our crew that tried to shake too. We was battling people at parties shaking. I'm a kid who grew up in California who's trying to do Harlem Shake at parties. Like that was just a thing.
So what it was for me is the previous spring fling, I met Divine, right? And so the song that I love the most was Let's Get It G-Dep. Still my favorite shake song, right?
That's a fire.
And so like Divine, in my opinion, Divine was the nicest of all of us, right? It was Divine. Then it was me and Hustle were kind of tied, and then Imhotep swears he was the nicest. I don't think so. I think I was nicer than him, right? Anyway, but Divine taught me how to do it, and I remember the first time I learned how to shake, like really do it, like my ribs were like really really sore because your shoulders work and your hips work in a way that like they're not really used to doing it, right? But here's the funny thing about it though, and this is embarrassing, like. I was one of those people that like, if I was just like walking down the street, just minding my own business, I have a song in my head, like I would just start shaking, which is something that was like a very, very childlike mentality. Every once in a while, I might still do something silly, not necessarily shake, but just like walk down the street, like just do something, whatever, right? But I did this all the time in college, and like people would be laughing and make fun of me, as they should have. I didn't really care. I didn't really care because I was like, whatever, like, but like it was just very, very childish. But yeah, that was me. I was that kid in the party.
This song though was crazy. My other crazy memory of this song is being a first year, and like you said, by the time I came as a first year, the New York cats that shook at parties was already a thing, and so it was like that was kind of an established thing. Yeah. So I came into UVA with a chip on my shoulder anyway, so I was always about doing something different. But I'll never forget, we had this party, and Youngin comes on, and my boy Trey is he's at the party, he's shaking or whatever. one of the New York cats came up and just dusted him, like got him out of the way, like, and everybody was like, oh, like it was crazy. And so, you know, I jumped out because we as a little first year crew, we not gonna let nobody mess with our crew. And I remember I jumped out and I'm getting the cat, he getting me, we going at each other, and I hit him with the N1, put his head in the shirt, the jersey, got him out of there. Everybody was like, ah! Yeah, man. So, yo, this song, man, so many amazing memories with this record, Joe. Holla back, youngin'. Highlight.
Woo-hoo. Get Right. How you feel about this one?
It's a melite. To me,
I'm just neutral about it.
Yeah, I think if the hook wasn't so bad, I would actually like it. Like the beat is good. This is a good Rockwilder beat. I told you about how I feel about Rockwilder beats. I either hate them or I love them. This would be on the love them side of the spectrum, but he just doesn't do anything with it.
Here's what I will say about this beat and Rockwilder in particular, right? I actually thought of a concept for an episode to do, which would be to take producers from this kind of time period on songs that we'd probably be less familiar with.
Okay.
Play them and have us guess who it is. Okay. The reason why is because I was listening to this record and I was like, that sounds like a Rockwilder beat.
Right.
I look it up, like, yep, it's a Rockwilder beat. But I was underwhelmed because, to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of Rockwilder as a producer. He's got some joints that I really, really like. But for the most part, I was like, eh. But then, like, even like the hook, you know, grab your dicks if you get in right, grab your tits if you.
It's like, I mean, and it's like, okay, you know, you're from Brooklyn. You've got to be inspired by Biggie. I get it, but like take that hook somewhere that it hasn't been, or do something original. Like this, there's nothing original about his performance.
Yes. So the next one, Ride for This. Oh God,
you hated this.
This shit is awful.
I don't think so, but
it's a low light for me. It's a low light for Brian too.
Wait. I do want to say this. I think that your opinion of Ja Rule is unnecessarily brutal in this time frame.
It's also the beat though,
and I think it's easy to beat up on Ja Rule, but like Ja Rule like has output that's dope. Like Vinny Vidi Vici is dope. He's got good shit.
I know that. I like that.
This song is not that good, but it's not bad either. It's fine.
I think the beat is trash.
It just sounds like some shit from this era. Like it's just so, I don't even want to say played out, but it's just like, I don't care about this song. You know what I mean?
I think that if you're gonna make a beat like this, fully commit to it and make it like a NWA, like Eazy-E kind of thing, because it's got some of that instrumentation, right? Like sounding from that 80s period.
This sounds like some of the shit that when Irv Gotti was trying to do The Murderers, which was like Ja Rule and all his friends. It sounds like some shit they would have put out, and I would have not listened to it.
Yeah. It was I don't like this song. I think the beat is bad.
All right.
So next we have One Day.
So this is a highlight for me.
This is a highlight for me for the simple fact that it has subject matter. So by default, I give it a highlight. I don't have any idea about whether or not any of this is real. You know what I mean? But it sounds like it could be real. Right?
I hate when you do this, so I'm just going to keep moving.
I feel you.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, dude is a part of Street Family, which is a well-known we take niggas' chains and they might die crew out of Brooklyn. So I think that, you know, he doesn't even say anything on here that's that gangster to me. He's I grew up poor. It's like, yeah, you probably did.
No, I'm not saying that to discount him. Yeah. What I'm saying is that I don't know anything about Fabolous. Okay. Like his personal life.
I agree. He needs to do a better job.
That's my point. So I have no idea if this is real or not.
Right.
But it sounds like it could be, so this is a highlight for me. Like it sounds like it's depth. Like the criticism isn't that like he's being fake here. The criticism is that like I just don't know shit about him.
Yeah.
That's the criticism.
The other thing that makes me laugh about this, because I went back and listened to it again, and I remember thinking like, man, this song, when this album came out, I remember thinking this song is so introspective. I wish there was more like this. But like the shit that he was talking about is like, yo, you know, the hoes wouldn't give me no brain. My life's so hard. It's like, bro, you're going to tell me that your life is hard because hoes aren't giving you brain?
Hold on.
Like,
didn't he say something about like getting off the train at 3 a.m. to sell coke, whether it was like rain, sleet, or snow?
Yeah, Rico Kane. Yeah. He's like,
I didn't do the rhyme right, but I think that was the essence of what he was saying.
Yeah. Like, okay. So, I mean, it's talking about, but it was just funny, like, you know, glance at my shirt and didn't see no chain, so then they wouldn't give me no brain. It's like, bro, like, I was feeling sorry for you until you told me that I'm supposed to feel bad because hoes aren't giving you brain. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a highlight, as you said, just because of the subject matter and the fake Dr. Dre beat.
Gotcha.
I said, I think the song could be a little stronger, but beggars can't be choosers.
Gotcha. Trade It All, featuring Jagged Edge.
This is a Medlight for me, and
I want it to be a highlight. It's almost there, but it's a Medlight. So
when this album came out, so you know, if you remember at the time, right, an artist would choose their singles and they would roll their singles out, and sometimes some of the singles would come out after the album.
Okay.
So when this album came out, I remember hearing Trade It All and being, and I remember seeing the track list and seeing that Jagged Edge was on it. And being like, Jagged Edge was dope at the time. And my brother's super into R&B. So
yeah, and they were good contributors to hip-hop records.
Yeah, and so, you know, I'm excited for this record. And I heard this record and I was like, this is so mediocre. And I remember at the time, Barbershop was a movie. And then they had like Barbershop 2 or whatever. And it was either this or the remix that they put on the soundtrack of one of those Barbershop movies. And I think that was the reason why it became like a single and it was big and everything. But this song is so mediocre to me.
So I will say it's one of the better, it's the second best beat from Clue and Duro, in my opinion. The other thing too is that I think the reason why it's not a highlight is because while it is one of their better beats, it's also not memorable for what it is. Like it's a girl record, right?
Yeah.
And there's probably other better girl records that were coming out at the time.
That's fair.
What I will say though, what I do love about this song is the outro, the skit. I love the skit. So the skit basically is just talking about like all the shenanigans that Fabolous is doing, right? And it actually, like, based off of the image that he's creating, it feels like very appropriate for who he is. It's basically just like immature shit. Like he was like, oh, he was caught selling defective slip mats to DJs. Like that shit just like had me chuckling, right? Like it was just like a bunch of random shit. Like it was just funny. And so and they're like, oh, when asked about it, all he had to say was Fabolous and no other comment. Like it was just, I don't know.
It was supposed to be like an interview about him or something.
It was just like a funny little, like someone was just like reading like a newsreel about Fabolous, right? And all like this like stupid little ignorant shenanigans he was doing.
Right.
And it was just funny.
Yeah.
So that skit was definitely a highlight for me.
Okay.
So the next we have is Right Now and Later On.
Gotta be a highlight.
Timbo the King for sure.
Yeah, man. And you know, I mean, this was a time frame, and I think we give Pharrell and the Neptunes a lot of love. I just came from their 3-day festival here in town. You know what I'm saying?
Something in the water.
They put on for 757.
It was on everybody's IG stories.
It was huge.
I feel like I was there vicariously.
But Timbaland, I don't think we necessarily remember him in the pantheon the way we should.
Who's we? The collective we or you and I we?
The collective we.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like Timbaland, and I think I was telling someone else this, I feel like Timbaland is a victim of the social media era.
Okay.
In that I think that Pharrell is cool.
Yeah.
Like, and by cool, I mean like when you interview him, he always says the right shit. He looks smooth. His skin's glowing. Pause. You know what I'm saying?
He's a personality.
Like he has a personality.
Yeah.
Like, and even if it's not a big personality, it is a personality.
Yeah.
When you give Timbaland a microphone, he's goofy and rambunctious and silly in a way that you're just kind of like, whoa, this guy's he's a little awkward, like obnoxious. And I think that once we got to the social media era where everybody has a camera in their face all the time, Timbaland may have discounted himself in terms of how we think of him. But man, Timbaland could not miss in this era. And
he's one of the greatest producers of all time. He's in my top 6. He's in my elite tier.
And this record, it's so funny because this record is not even a memorable Timbaland joint. It's fine, but it's just because he has so much amazing shit that it's just fine.
It's aged very well though.
He's great, man. Yeah. Timbaland's great.
It's definitely a highlight for me.
Yeah, highlight.
So Take You Home featuring Lil Mo.
Medlight, this song's not bad. It's just not imaginative at all. It's a simple ass beat and a simple ass hook, concept of a song that was out when my parents were partying. Like, it's fine.
It's a low light for me. It's another one that I remember Joe skipping. The thing that's a shame about it is that he's collaborating with Lil Mo, and they had such
great chemistry
on her record that they can't reproduce it here, which is hard to do. You want to recreate it, but it can be hard to recreate.
Well, they did it again with Forever, so they did it twice.
But they didn't do it on.
They can't let you go. They did multiple records together that were successful and good.
It's a shame that it's not on this.
This ain't it.
Yeah, so it's a low light for me.
Yeah.
Get Smart.
This song is fucking horrible.
So it's
It's terrible.
All right, so it's a mid light for me.
It's a low light for me.
It's a low light for Brian as well.
Yeah.
What I will say about it is that like I remember Joe played the song a lot and got a kick out of it. So because of that, like, and because I remember thinking it was like clever at the time, I was like, all right, it's cool. But like it's not the best song. I don't know. I'm comfortable considering it a low light. But for me, I had it as a mid light.
This is my low light of low lights. I fucking hate this shit. It's terrible. And I think one of the things that you said resonates here for me, which is like, he's been getting head on every song. Yeah. So by fucking song 12 or whatever, when now you want to give me your whole song about how you get head, it's like, bro, I don't care, man. Get out of here with this shit. And it's like, maybe, you know, when I was listening to this album, I was probably, 18 years old. Mm-hmm. So you would think that at that age, I might think that this is cool. But even back then, I was like, this is fucking stupid.
I think what it is that this is one of the records that made it so that like I didn't really take Fabolous seriously, right? And
he's clearly not taking it seriously.
Yeah, but I mean, like I think I kind of like this is the reason why I compared him to Ludacris, right? And this is gonna seem like a diss, and it's not. But like he kind of comes off kind of clownish, and I think that Ludacris was able to get away with it because he really leaned into it and just completely sold into it. And was also like, not every single time, like he's got some bars that are definitely corny and they're not great. But he also has some bars that are like, yo, like he's nice as well.
He's nice. I concur with you. Yeah. I think Fabolous comes off like he's taking himself seriously, maybe too seriously. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like you said, Luda really leaned into the cartoonishness. Yeah, like to a point where you weren't sitting there like trying to be like, this is a guy that's taking himself serious.
Yeah, and so it works. But I'm like, I'm here. I listen to a song like this in conjunction with the rest of the album. I'm just like, I mean, I don't want to say like you're a clown, but like I can't really take you seriously, like because the bars are there, the metaphors, the wordplay, it's there. Yeah, you know what I mean. But just like the content, I'm like. You know what I will say though? I will give him some slack. I'll cut him some slack because I remember he did an interview. He's just got this line, and he was basically saying like, look, he didn't really even fancy himself a rapper. Okay. That he only started to rap. He only took it seriously when he realized that he can make money from it, and he was tired of being broke. Right. You know what I mean? And so I can see it's like someone like Mos Def, clearly. Like when Black on Both Sides comes together, it's to the point, I think you said the point on the podcast, and I'm not sure if it was an original thought, but nevertheless, it's like you spend your entire, like your second album, maybe it took you 2 years to create. Your first album, it took your entire life to create. Right. And like Black on Both Sides is clearly an album that Mos Def took his entire life to create, right? This is something that it sounds like it was thrown together in 2 or 3 weeks. Absolutely. And maybe it's because Fabolous never really had a vision for himself, right? Yeah. And if you think about like how we know Fabolous, it's like, all right, it's mixtapes, it's videos, it's singles. Yeah. It's almost like if Fabolous were a younger artist in today's era, like it would make sense. Mm-hmm. You don't need to make good albums. You just need to have like a good hot singles or something for TikTok. Fabolous would probably kill the shit now.
Yeah, that's true. I don't disagree.
So anyway, but that's Get Smart. So then we have the highlight of highlights. Yeah. Which is Can't Deny It. Right. And this is Rick Rock's. This is Nate Dogg. This shit is fire. Yeah. This shit is still hot.
I said this West Coast producer and this legendary West Coast vocalist made a Brooklyn star.
So let me ask you something, right? All right. Who does it better? East Coast artists on West Coast beats or West Coast artists on East Coast beats? I have my answer, which is I think you know which one I'm going to say.
I don't know. Like, I guess you got to give me some examples.
I think it's East Coast artists on West Coast beats. There's some West Coast artists that can do well on East Coast. For instance, like Corrupt or Snoop. But I mean, like if you think about it, like Biggie going back to California or Jay-Z on like his West Coast record. This joint here, right? It's just like you put a New York rapper on that West Coast swing, and it's just like that shit just goes for some reason.
Yeah, I think a lot of West Coast production can be more musical than a lot of East Coast production was in this time frame, and so that's probably also what it is a bit, right? It's just like when you have more music, you have more to work with.
That's true. That's true. Nevertheless, this joint is still dope.
It's great.
And great. my highlight of highlights for sure.
Yeah, I just remember, coming back to Cali for the summer and this record just being on the radio all the time and just everybody being like back in Cali, like, yo, this kid, like, he got Nate on it. Like he's about to be out of here. So yeah.
So next we have Mom Be Easy.
I've got this as a melite.
Okay.
This beat is actually not bad to me. Like I think
Okay.
you hate it more than I do.
Yeah.
But man, the hook and the concept are so bad. It just this is where Fabolous is starting to get annoying to me, like boring.
So I actually didn't think he was that boring on this record. I actually thought like, yeah, he didn't bore me on this. But nevertheless, it was a low light. I think that, and it's a highlight for Brian, so I had to shout that out. It's a highlight for him, but it's a low light for me. I thought this was weak from Just Blaze. And this is what did I say here? I said, yeah, this is when imitating beats from other producers goes very wrong. He's doing his best job to sound like the Neptunes. And I think he fails.
I think for me, the thing that I hate the most about this is I really don't like those records where people pitch their voice up to try to sound like a woman. So like, I got the or she ain't got no money in the bank. She ain't be my. I fucking hate all those songs, and they do that here. I really don't like it. And then I mean, at this point, it's like I guess Fabolous, and this is interesting, right? We talk about his kind of lack of an image, but maybe to your earlier point about the Mace thing, maybe the image he's going for is like he's a pimp, right? Because so on this song, it's like, oh, I'm not giving these hoes anything. That's what the whole song is about. But it's like, who cares?
It didn't. So for me, if we're going to talk the image thing, what it felt like was that like, oh, like New York is hot right now. So we took all like the notable things from the New York image and just kind of like just try to put it on himself. But like, I'm not even sure if he was really like living all that. Like, I don't know. Like, it's just like, it's basically the thing is that like, I felt like he actually could have been like a student at UVA, the way that we were all, not me, but everybody else was trying to wear, the Mitchell & Ness and the fitted caps and the things that they were talking about. But
he
like
was putting his image on as though they were clothes, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but it wasn't like he truly stood out from that. So like a good example would have been someone like Divine. And some of our listeners know Divine and some others don't. But like Divine was very much like a personality. You know what I mean? And like he had all these New York things, but like Divine was memorable for a reason.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, but like Fabolous seemed like he's just kind of like trying to like just, I don't know, latch on to these things. Or just like, I don't know. Like I never really got a sense of who he was other than like, I rap, I get my dick sucked. I have like,
and that's always been my biggest criticism. And so, for Kaysen who's listening and for you who, we do the podcast together, when y'all hear me bring up Fabolous, it's not to beat up on Fabolous. But what I'm saying is that there hasn't been a whole lot of character development there. I just don't know shit about this nigga. And I've been listening to this nigga for 20 years and I still don't know anything about him. All I know is about the stuff that we're, the domestic violence stuff that we hear about in the news, or little things about his crew. But as far as him as a man, I don't know anything about the man. So
all right, well, we don't give a fuck.
This is the obligatory bounce double time record that everybody had to have in the early 2000s. It's a real melite for me.
So I was neutral on this. This is Fabolous and Armando Cullen doing their best Jay-Z and Timbo impression from Jigga What. I don't hate it, but it bores me.
Yeah, it's boring.
So, and literally like that's the beat they're trying to make. That's the flow they're trying to recreate. It doesn't work, but it's also like, it's whatever. I don't hate it though.
And I mean, it's not just them, right? Like even Jay-Z was reimagining that song, right? Like all of these guys were making a double time record on every single album. Like Jay-Z had that song Road Dogs. It was on DJ Clue joint, and it had all of them, and it's the same concept. Like they're all just trying to do these like double time records because I guess that was what was popping at the time.
Yeah, interesting. All right, so the next we have Bad Guy featuring Pain in the Ass.
What a waste of Pain in the Ass.
So Pain in the Ass is great on here.
Pain in the Ass is always great for the most part. It's just like don't waste him. And then like they didn't even really need him because they really just needed that clip of Tony Montana saying you need people to be the bad guy. But it's like if Fabolous had told us something about himself, it's like how you talked about how like Jay-Z has all these songs about his haters and people hating on him. And it's like, are people really hating on him? I don't know. But he's saying it so much that like I kind of believe him that people are hating on him.
Yeah.
So Fabolous is saying that like we're trying to paint him out to be the bad guy. Nigga, we don't know shit about you. Why do we think you're a bad guy? We don't know you.
So what I was saying is that like the theme on here doesn't make sense with the image that they projected, right? Because like I said, the image that they have projected is not a bad guy,
right? It's like you're a pretty boy, or whatever.
Yeah. So it's like I don't buy this. Like if 50 Cent is gonna say he's a bad guy, I get it. If DMX is gonna say he's a bad guy, I get it.
Completely agree.
If Jay-Z says he's a bad guy, I get it. Beanie Siegel, I get it. Right. If Nelly says he's a bad guy,
you're gonna be like, are you?
If Will Smith says he's a bad guy,
that's
Mace.
Fair. That's fair.
You know what I mean?
Mace,
like,
you're like,
yeah. Fabolous is telling me he's a bad guy. It's like, I don't buy it. And it's not because you could be a bad guy in your real life. You could be. But that's not what you told me up until this point.
I agree with you.
So the other thing too, he also repeats a line from Superwoman when he says, "Maybe come faster than a speeding bullet."
Yeah, I think he said it first here, right?
Well, then he definitely.
Well, actually, no. This
Superwoman comes out first.
Not two.
The Superwoman single with Fabolous on it came out before this record.
I think you're right.
So yeah.
Anyway,
we
don't like the song.
It's not a low light for me, but it's just not. I didn't think it was very good.
I don't like it.
Gotta Be Thug.
I don't hate this song. I know you're gonna hate it. I don't hate the song. I think
it's actually a highlight for me. I think this is the best beat on the record.
Their best.
Okay. Yes,
okay. I was gonna say it's not necessarily a highlight.
Yeah.
But I don't dislike this song. It's fine.
I also think Fabolous delivers here. He doesn't sound as boring as he usually does.
Okay.
And so, but I like the beat on here. It's I had to give it a highlight, obligatory highlight, because it is Clue and Duro's best beat on here.
I think this is my favorite Clue and Duro production on here as well.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and say it's a highlight. So.
And I think that it's actually also Fabolous's most complex hook on here.
Yeah, probably.
Like most of his hooks are just be easy or some dumb shit like that. And this is like something that actually has a little bit of depth to it.
Oh my God. If Brian is still listening to us, he is like throwing
he's so
shit.
mad. He's probably.
In fairness to him though, he said that I asked him, I said, where does this album fit in his catalog? And he said like, yo, it's at the bottom.
Really?
Yeah. So
but he's talking mixtapes.
Probably. He just said
Brian,
this song
you gotta let us know. Besides Real Talk, I think was the name of that album. Like, what album is better than this in Fabolous's albums? Like, he has bad albums, bro. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the last one we have is If They Want It. I remember this record, but it didn't really do anything for me.
It was on the Clue project, and I will say, for me, when I heard it on the Clue project, people who were serious recording artists didn't always give Clue their best, right?
Yeah.
They would give Clue some shit and be like, yo, put this on, that'll promote us while we put our good shit out. So in my mind, my expectation wasn't, oh, this guy's giving Clue his best record. It was, he just gave him some shit. So if that's what he was doing, then I'm cool with it. It's a fine little mixtape cut. Yeah. If this is, I'm taking this seriously and I want you to promote this is not a great song.
So let's have you make this a classic. Now, I already spoiled at the outset that I don't really have anything. I mean, I have general notes, but I don't have a specific track list to make this a highlight.
Okay.
Obviously, the songs that I like, I'm going to keep. But the songs that I'd add, I mean, it's pretty much just like, give me songs either with better beats, and if you're gonna be like funny, then lean into that, or give me more substance.
Okay,
right? It's kind of it. Like, I'm not sure how else to make this a classic.
So I did have to labor a bit to make it a classic, and I will say that at some point, like, I'm gonna stall out at. There are records that just do not exist in the ethos today.
Sure. I do that all the time.
That are gonna have to be made.
Yes.
So all right.
I think I did that on the last Make It a Classic.
So here's what I did, right? And kudos to you, because you said this on another episode about this person, and it connected for me with this artist. So I have two executive producers here. The first is Fat Joe. And the reason I chose Fat Joe is because Fat Joe has effectively done what Fabolous is trying to do here.
Okay.
Fabolous is a street guy. He's street oriented. He has some street records here, but he doesn't want that to be his music persona. He wants to be a mainstream artist that makes mainstream big smash records.
Yeah.
That's what Fabolous is.
Yeah.
He hasn't maybe necessarily canvassed it all the way, but Fabolous is like a skinny version of what like Fat Joe's trying to accomplish here, right? He's a street dude with a street reputation who makes huge records that women love that you can dance to in the club.
Yeah.
So Fat Joe's my first executive producer. My second is Pharrell, and I'll just say the Neptunes.
Okay.
And the reason is because I feel like Fabolous really effectively did what the Neptunes tried to do over and over again with their own acts.
Yeah.
So, the clips. Fabolous is better than the clips are at what the clips do.
Yeah, for sure.
Fabolous he's a better punchline oriented artist. He kills this Neptune production. What were we gonna say?
I was gonna say he's in my 4th tier of all time, which puts him in like 30s or something like that, 30s and 40s.
Especially in this era.
Which is sounds like disrespect. It's not. It's a very very respectable place to be. Like it is. Anyway,
especially in this era, he's better than Pusha T was when Pusha T came out the next year as a part of the clips.
Yeah.
Right.
No, yeah.
Okay. So he's that. Philly's Most Wanted. Do you remember Philly's Most Wanted?
I do remember. Yeah.
So
was it Across the Border, Mama?
Yeah. So that was Bubonic and Mr. was their names.
Yeah.
They were from Philly.
That's a great record though.
He's better at what they were doing than they are.
That's true. Yeah.
And there's an actual record that canvases that, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So so the Neptunes are going to be the production arm of executive production.
Okay.
And Fat Joe is going to be the vision.
Conceptual.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
All right. So these are the songs that I kept. And I couldn't keep a lot. Youngin, Holla Back, no
Obviously,
changes.
yeah.
Right? Get Right.
Okay.
So what I did on Get Right is I added Fat Joe because he's the executive producer and that's his type of shit. But I added Ludacris.
Okay. I'm cool with
I feel
that.
I feel like Ludacris would be
that's fine.
that
That's
chamber
good, yeah.
of hip hop. And then I said, give me a better hook. Same beat, but a better hook.
All
right. Next, One Day, and I kept it. No changes.
Sure.
Because it gave us some introspection about the artist.
It gives us something.
Anything, please. Right Now and Later On.
Obviously.
Here's where I get a little bit imaginative, and I think Kaysen's gonna love this. You may love it or hate it.
Okay.
So Fabolous was on Elektra Records.
Yeah.
And there were only 2 big artists that I know about on Elektra prior to Fabolous.
Okay.
The first was ODB.
Yes.
The second was Missy. So I want Missy. I want Missy on this record because I need Missy on this. I need the Elektra family to embrace this man and put their arms around him.
Sadly, ODB was in jail at the time. I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's a Timbaland beat.
Yeah.
Give me Missy on this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Next, Can't Deny It. No changes.
Obviously.
And then last is Gotta Be Thug.
Okay.
But what I did was I added Ja Rule and Nori.
I'm cool with that. I'm cool with both of those additions. Yeah. Cool. Especially Nori.
Yeah, like it works for like what he does.
Especially Nori on this.
Perfect.
Absolutely. He would work with that beat too.
Absolutely. So now we get to trying to make this an album because those are the only album cuts that I was able to keep.
Yes. Okay. That's why I didn't attempt this because I'm like, you want me to try to invent like 7 songs, 8 songs?
Basically, you're gonna have to come up with this shit from scratch. And so what I'm doing is I'm trying to source shit that's gonna work. So so the first thing that I do is I put Superwoman Part 2 on here.
Okay.
Because it came out the summer before this album dropped, and it lived on a Lil Mo album that nobody cares about.
Can it be a bonus cut?
Sure. But I mean, it needs to be on this album.
All right, that's fair.
I think more people would have bought this album if it was on there, and I don't know anybody who owns that Lil Mo album.
Okay. So
I know people who went out and bought that single, myself included. I think I have it on vinyl, but I don't know anybody who owns that album.
Okay.
So all right. Records that the Neptunes produced that should be repurposed and added to this album.
Okay.
The first, and this is going to be controversial. You don't even know if you know this one. Some people are going to please shoot me in the comments because this is I'm going left. There was a record that the Neptunes did with Babyface. It came out that summer. It was called There She Goes. The Neptunes and Babyface.
Yeah, I vaguely remember this. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, Babyface is a great writer.
Yeah. Was there a video for it?
I think so.
I don't remember the song, but I remember.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This shit was hard, but it was just like a Babyface record that nobody listens to. Right. So what I said was, at the time, if you remember, Ray J is also coming up as a solo artist.
Okay.
Wait a Minute drops that same summer.
Okay.
So instead, Babyface writes this record for Ray J, and it becomes a Ray J and Fabolous record. Mm-hmm. Fabolous features on it. So this is going to be one of the records.
Okay.
And so what I'm doing is I'm creating a Fabolous album that is him just playing to his strengths. These are big hit records that we're starting with. The next is Cross the Border Remix.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember, but there was a remix Across the Border. Not Across the Border, Mama, but there was another one that was like, dun, 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 dun. Oh man, Across the Border remix was a record that was given to Philly's Most Wanted, and it featured Fabolous.
Okay.
And Fabolous bodied the shit. Okay. I mean, he comes and he bats clean up and he kills it. So we're not gonna make that a Philly's Most Wanted song. We're gonna make it Fabolous featuring Philly's Most Wanted. He murders it. And then the next is Philly's Most Wanted had this other record called Please Don't Mind. Please don't mind how I pursue.
I actually don't remember that one.
Oh, that shit was a crazy. So that one, that's gonna be Fabolous as well.
Okay.
So those are the other ones, and then here's the big controversial one.
Okay.
Same summer, Jadakiss, Knock Yourself Out. So the Neptunes,
I might have to leave.
The Neptunes gave that to Jadakiss. Now, the freestyle that I told you about that had Poster Boy and Fabolous that summer before this album came out, Fabolous is rapping over Knock Yourself Out, and he murders it. So here, the Neptunes say, sorry, Jada, you're our mans, but we're executive producing Fabous's album, so we're gonna give Knock Yourself Out to Fabolous.
You're catching shots for that one.
So that record is on the project. And you're just mad because you want Jadakiss to have the song?
I'm just saying, like, it's such a Knock Yourself Out was such a huge iconic record at the time. Knock Yourself Out. Melissa Ford in the video. What?
Now it's an iconic Fabolous song.
Wow. All right.
So
that's bold, yo. You're just like, why don't you just take Jay-Z's best record?
If he had something that was amazing by the Neptunes at this moment,
give him Clip's best record.
I would actually, but Clips don't pop until the next year. They still had
beats in like before that.
Yeah, but it's like I two of them are probably Philly's Most Wanted joints that I'm giving him, because this would have been the exclusive audio footage time frame where those records aren't out. 2002 is grinding.
Give him the joint from Rock La Familia. I Just Wanna Love You. Give him that beat as well.
Earlier.
Oh, so it's way too early.
I'm going only songs.
I feel you.
I'm
pushing back against this.
I'm saying only songs that came out in that summer.
Gotcha. All right.
So then next I said I want to know more about the story of my main character.
Wait, when did Usher's Burn come out? You don't have to call. That's a Neptunes beat.
Yeah, but
that's that time frame though.
Yeah, I don't need it.
Okay.
So then next, I want some records with some heart and soul. So I said I want one produced by Bink for sure.
Okay.
I want probably one by Alchemist, and then maybe Primo. The reason I chose Alchemist and Primo is actually because I went and I cross-referenced when I was looking at this with the Jadakiss album that came out at the same time. And I wanted to see how they gave Jadakiss heart and soul. And his best records were Alchemist and Primo Productions.
Okay.
All right. So lastly, I want this isn't separate from the two records that I'm talking about above. This is in addition to, like, this is all together. But I need a record from Fabolous on this album that tells me about Brooklyn. Like, I need like a where I'm from, or I'm so Brooklyn, or like tell me something about where you're from so I can connect with you as an artist more. And that could be the Bink record, that could be the Alchemist record, I don't care, but I need a Brooklyn record.
That makes sense.
And then last but not least, I need a heritage record. I want a record that tells me, yo, I'm Dominican, I come from a Caribbean area of the country. Like, tell me something about who you are as a man. So my idea for that, not on the album, but in the run up to the album, May of 2001, Foxy Brown came out with Oh Yeah, featuring Sprague Benz.
Yeah.
That record was insane.
It still goes.
So I love that record. So I've got Fabolous on a remix of it.
Oh, that's dope.
And that kind of gives him like a Caribbean angle, because if you remember, there's a lot of
different islands, but okay.
But Barrington Levy's on Shine's record. Like, I feel like a lot of the Caribbean artists that came out of New York in this time frame, they struggled to give them like kind of the identity. So it always they just get a Jamaican artist.
I got you.
It was always like, fair. Barrington Levy, Sprague Benz, whatever. So I'm cool with that.
You have Wyclef on there. They're from the same island, technically. I'm trolling. I'm definitely trolling.
I'm gonna leave that one alone because I don't want to get shot in real life. All right, and then last but not least, I've got in that run up, Ray J's "Wait a Minute" also came out in that summer. So I've got a Wait a Minute remix with a Fabolous verse.
Look, if you, for me, musically, Ray J doesn't deserve to have anything. So I don't care. Take all of his best stuff.
Hey man, yo,
Panama wants to come for me.
Come fight him. But like I think that pairing would have worked well.
Okay.
So that's a whole bunch of hit records and then a few heart and soul records that we added. And I think that, like Fabolous is already somebody that we regard as a hit maker and, we regard him highly. So it's not necessarily that this would completely reimagine Fabolous, but maybe it would just give us how we see him now earlier in his career.
No, it makes sense. I mean, like I remember when Fat Joe did Jealous One Still Envy, right? And I still remember, I think it was a Howard Homecoming. Did that album come out this year? 2001 or was it 2002?
I think it might have been 01. That sounds right.
So I remember that he was on the radio because I think I was at Howard Homecoming going up there, and I heard Fat 2000. Joe. So it was 2000.
Go ahead.
Whenever it was.
Originally, so it was December 01, but it was
December
supposed
01.
to come out in 2000.
Thank you. So it was December 01, and I remember, because that's right. So it was Howard Homecoming 2001, and I was there with some folks from UVA, right? But I remember I was driving to meet them, and Fat Joe was on the radio saying, he's like, yo, you heard it now. This will be my classic album. And I remember like laughing at that.
He says that on every album.
Though. But this is the first time I heard him say that, right? And I was like, I mean, it's gonna be better than Don Cartagena. Like, I don't know.
Right.
And so, but nevertheless, though, like in terms of like it being a classic, I'm not sure if I would call it a classic, but like it's probably his most memorable. It's his most iconic record. It probably is.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? And so it was still a statement piece commercially from Fat Joe that he had delivered before.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm like Don Cartagena is great, but that was also probably a little bit more from the streets.
Right.
For the streets. Right. That was like his commercial, like that's gonna be like the white people are gonna be listening to this. and maybe Fabolous, maybe if Fat Joe's behind the record, Fabolous has a chance to create that record as well on his first time up the bat.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think that the thing about Fabolous, and I already hinted it before, that I think it is a little tough when you never really thought of yourself as an artist. So you don't have a lot of time to kind of develop like who you want to be. You're with Clue. Clue has an idea. This record's hot. Cool. I'm in the club and I'm getting my dick sucked and I'm popping bottles. Right. But I mean, like, it also doesn't necessarily help when like, who are his like Brooklyn role models? You know what I mean? Like Jay-Z's idea of maturity was like, I'm no longer putting rims on my car. I got the mob back Benz with the stock rims. That's his idea of growth. You know what I mean? That's actually a bar, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, who's he really looking up to? Maybe. Well, the other thing about Jay-Z though, what I will say though, is that like, I think that Jay-Z can kind of like if Jay-Z, for as good as his bars are, if he rapped the same on every single record, he would probably get boring. And I think that what Jay-Z does very well is that Jay-Z, like, while he doesn't have the best flow of all time, what he does, he probably has the most flows. Like between Jay-Z and Busta, like Jay-Z will rhyme different on this track than he will on that. A lot of the times he will.
I'd probably give it to Twista, Ludacris, many other people before Jay-Z. Busta definitely.
Busta for sure. Yeah. I'm not sure about Twista, but I understand. I'm just not sure if I agree, but I feel you. Okay. But nevertheless, though, but like Fabolous didn't do that. He just, for the most part, was just like, oh, I've got like, I'm doing these multi-syllable rhymes. I'm gonna try to rhyme 6 words in a sentence, right? And I'm just gonna keep coming up with clever ways to do that.
Right.
And then like another clever way, another clever thing to do would just be like come with like a really dope bar, and then write lines that come before it. So that like, when this one hits at the end, it sounds like, I came up with that at the end. It's like, no, you came up with that at the beginning. I'm not sure if he did it, but what I'm saying though is it sounds like he's just like kind of trying to like stick to a formula.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Funny that you say that because I remember seeing an early Drake interview.
Yeah.
This was like around the time of So Far Gone.
Okay.
And they asked him like how he comes up with a verse, and he basically said that. He's like, well, he's like you come up with like a really good bar, and then you put like the 3 bars before it that like come up, like lead up to it, which is funny. It's just funny you say that.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, those are my kind of closing thoughts on Fabolous the artist. Yeah. What I will say is I tried to listen to some of his hits that came after to see if I was still noticing the same things. And he's definitely evolved. He's definitely matured matured as an artist, but he doesn't, not in the same way that like Jay-Z did, not in the same way that like Andre 3000 did.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he just kind of refined his flow, but didn't really like improve upon it.
I completely agree. Yeah, and I think you do see a little bit of growth in some of the mixtapes, the summertime shootouts and the things like that, where like maybe he has like a little bit more flexibility to, I don't know, lean in on these like mixtape concepts and songs and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, I don't know, like the album wise, not a whole lot of growth.
And you know, the thing is too, is that like I do have to respect this dude. I mean, like I said, like I have him as like a top 50 MC, which I think is like, it's not disrespect. Like that's a good place to be. And he's there because the wordplay, the punchlines, the metaphors, like he has them. Right. He's dope. If you gave me his lyrics on paper, I'd be like, yo, like, who is this cat? He's nice.
Right.
Then when you hear it, you're like, I mean, okay, I'm kind of getting bored.
I feel like you get impressed at first. Yeah. And then like after a while, you're like, okay, I already know what you're going to say before you even say it, right? Yeah. Like, he sets up his punchlines. It's almost like watching a fighter that's like a very one-dimensional fighter, right? It's like okay, he's gonna jab now. Okay, he's gonna hook now. Okay, you know what I mean? It's like, look, you already see it coming.
One of the things I don't like is when like if I can hear a song for the first time and then like I can rap along to a lyric that I can guess, like I don't like that. Right. So like the worst example, the biggest offense is when Kanye West said sweet and sour sauce. No, when he said until the sweet hour's lost. And he said like eating Asian pussy. And he's like, all I need is, and I said sweet and sour sauce. He actually said, I was like, oh my God, you actually said sweet and sour sauce, eating Asian pussy. I can't believe you did that. Like, that's just corny. Right. But on this record, he says something like, oh, why don't you like jerk a little, da 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 da. And then put your legs back while I work the middle. And then like, I was rapping along to work the middle because I was like, oh, that's what he's going to say here. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Like I shouldn't be able to predict your lyrics if I've listened to the song for the first time.
Yeah. You can tell he backs into like bars that he thinks are clever here. Yeah. And it's annoying.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else?
Nah, but you know, I mean, I hope we also, you know, we kind of gave a little bit of what we love about Fab, and you know, hopefully y'all have a better understanding of when I bring up Fab as somebody who doesn't have a whole lot of depth as an artist, why I feel that way, right? Because like I'm definitely somebody who was rooting for him from the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't need every single album to be serious and cohesive. Yeah, but I like lean into something. Like I said, like the way Ludacris does, like lean into something. Right. And I think that he doesn't really lean into any of these things. And it's just kind of like, it just kind of exists without being assembled all that well. Yeah. And for me, like I like albums that like you can go back to 30, 40 years later and you're like, yo, like that's still dope. Yeah. Like that's kind of how I judge it. And I know that's my own bias and it's not for everybody. But if you're not going to do that, at least, I don't know, give me something.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think, you know, I always say I like when artists don't make music unless they have something to say. Yeah. And I feel like when I listen to this album, it doesn't feel like the artist had something to say. Yeah. It feels like, you know, we signed this artist and he's hot. Let's exploit it. Let's put something out. And so it feels like a product more than it does something that teaches me what the artist wanted me to hear them say. Yeah.
The last thing I'll say is not necessarily about Fabolous, but it's just, you know, how this episode came together. One of our listeners, Brian, we've been shouting him out the whole episode. He was like, yo, when are you going to do something about Fabolous? So look, if you guys have a request from the album that seems reasonable for us to do, obviously if something comes from left field, if you've listened to our episodes and you suggest something that comes from left field, we may not get to it. But the easiest way to suggest something is to hit us up in the comments. Yeah. If you send us a message on Facebook, sometimes that gets lost. But if you're watching this on YouTube, drop a comment on YouTube. If you're watching it on Facebook, drop a comment there. If you're listening, however you're listening to it, drop a comment. Let us know, and we'll try to we'll try to get to it.
I think typically what we do is like we try to do albums that either one or both of us is passionate about. Yeah, and whether that's like, you know, the Cannabis album where we both passionately thought it was fucking ass, or like something where, you know, one of us really liked the album or still like it. So hopefully, you know, it's something that will intersect us in one of those ways, but we definitely will try to take requests as well.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Peace.
Peace.
I'm a fucking rider. You don't wanna fuck with me. Yeah, got scared. Switching lanes, do a buck with me.
That's right.
Y'all can't deny it. I'm a fucking rider. You don't wanna bang with me.
Yeah.
And you know I brought my gang with me.
Okay.
Niggas trip, I got my thing with me.
Yo, if they want it, cowards get it. They still wonder how I did it. Now y'all with it. These niggas see how I spit it. These bitches see how I kid it. You can hear my coupe a block away. Bitches be yelling, let me ride like they snooping Dr. Dre. I keep spitting, them clips cocked on the calicos. Keep shitting with zip blocks to that Cali dro. Keep hitting, and shit blocks for that Cali dough. Keep getting my tip rocked by them Cali hoes. It's William Bonnie, still them mommies. Dance closely, even though they feel them limeys. I ain't trying to send police to your arrest. I'm trying to put this piece to your chest, and you in peace with the rest. You can release to the press. This how G's ride from the north to the south, to the east, to the west. Let's go.
Y'all can't deny it. I'm a fucking rider. You don't wanna fuck with me.
Yeah.
Got skills in the trunk with me.
Okay.
Switching lanes, do a buck with